Hello and welcome to the Corrective Consciousness podcast, episode 7. I am your host, VyseTheBold, and this is...
I am Lotus Prince.
And I'm Pyrojackfrost.
Alright guys, we're here again.
Yep.
I'm already getting sick of you.
I've been sick of you.
Wow, it all comes out.
I don't even know why I'm here.
I need new podcasting friends.
Candid for the listener's consumption. All live on Sunday.
So, yeah, this is the 7th episode, and we actually have a lot of listener questions for you this time around, and I'm actually really surprised and very happy with the output, so keep them coming, guys. These are all really good questions, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, the fourth one you haven't yet heard, but I've... No, you did. I showed you all 4. So, yeah, we have 4, so I'm going to ask these in the order that I received them. These were on my YouTube channel. So the first question is from Carrick52, and I'm going to read this one verbatim. Here is a question for everyone present. Have you played, and do you like, games that are borderline unfair without a guide, but reasonably challenging and engaging with one? I am talking about games like Kingsfield and Shadow Tower, or Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, early Persona, other SMT games, really any game with a complex mechanic like Demon Fusing in SMT or Demon Souls World's Tendency that you can't really comprehend fully on a normal playthrough. So have you played and do you like games that are borderline unfair without a guide but challenging and engaging with one, like SMT or Demon Souls?
So go ahead.
You go first.
Go ahead, Pyro.
I kind of disagree that the SMT games are unfair without a guide. I mean, being one of my favorite series, I've played them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they take some getting used to, and knowing how to do the fusions for the demons you want is very, very useful, but they are beatable just by collecting demons, however you want to say it, or personas, and fusing ones until you get better ones. You don't need to have like certain ones to progress, but it would make your life a lot easier.
And even the fusions, you have to know like which ones to fuse, and even then it's like a percentage chance of success, right, or something like that.
No, they well, yes and no. Some of the games had a chance of failure if you're doing it on a full moon.
Okay.
But because the game keeps track of moon cycles.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, it usually is based on the tarot for Persona games or the race of demon in the mainline games.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to fuse correctly all the time. Usually what I used to do is just collect demons until I had no more room and just fuse and get stronger ones.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing in Persona 3.
Yeah, and just make sure I have a nice array of skills, like make sure I have one of every element, etc. And keep doing that until the end of the game, and I usually am fine just by doing that. Maybe every now and then I might need to go online to play a game, but to answer the user's the question is yes, I like that in those sorts of games if it's necessary, but overall, I don't mind using guides in games as long as it's not like still challenging, because then it just gets annoying. But anyway, that was my answer to that.
And actually, to play off of that, because you were saying, oh, actually, I disagree, the Demon's Fusion thing isn't really, like, that unfair or whatever. I actually kind of have to say the same thing about Demon Souls. You don't need to worry about World Tendency, although if you don't know what you're doing, you are going to make the game a lot harder for yourself, because for the record, World Tendency is completely like there's nothing in the game that addresses it. I think there might be a little blurb or something in the manual, but in the game, when you go to your pause menu, you have 5 sections in your menu. There's the basic options menu where you could load a game. There's your item list, your equipment list, something else, whatever, and World Tendency. And the World Tendency thing is just a picture that shows all 5 levels and the nexus, and then how dark or bright they are. And you kind of don't know why, unless you're paying very close attention all the time. And as you kill bosses, then the World Tendency gets a little brighter. But if you die when in human form, or if you kill NPCs, then it gets darker. Now, whatever, but the problem is you would always want to play in human form because it effectively doubles your health. But if you die in human form, it gets darker, and as the world tendency gets darker, there's a maximum point, of course, but as it gets darker, the game gets harder because the enemies are tougher all around, although they yield better rewards. So if you don't, like, you can beat the game without paying attention to world tendency, but like, you don't even need to acknowledge it. But if you care about world tendency and how to, like, what the events are and how to get them, you probably need a guide unless you do an insane amount of exploring. But that said, I played Demon's Souls all the way through, like, with like a very comprehensive guide. There's virtually no plot to spoil, but I'm one of those people who wanted to get everything that he could in one playthrough, so I was absolutely using a guide. And I actually often use guides even if I'm Let's Playing, because I want to get everything and at least show that stuff off. So I do not mind using a guide for games like that. And as a matter of fact, this is an early reveal, but I've actually recorded a whole bunch of Demon's Souls, so that's going to go up eventually. So there's that too.
My take on it is that certain games are better with a guide, and certain games almost pretty much damn require one. The Demon's Souls games, good luck playing them as on your own because they're so arcane.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, if you want to just beat them, you could run through and hit the enemies until they fall over. But if you want to really get a good sense of the game, then yeah, you better use a guide.
I mean, like, even getting to like the DLC area in Dark Souls 2, I think it is.
No, Dark Souls 1.
Or Dark Souls 1
you
is
probably
like,
need a guide to even do that.
Damn near impossible. Like,
you would never
figure
out how to do it. Like, remember that thing you were at way earlier in the game? Go back there for no reason. It's like, what? And that's after going to a completely different place and getting a drop from an enemy that you also could miss if you did that thing early. It's like, it's insane. Mm-hmm. Like, you pay $20 and you don't know why. And the funny thing is, it's totally worth it.
I don't really mind in games like that, and especially ones that are really challenging, like on their own without the guide. The guide just tells you where to go. Mm-hmm. So, like, the real challenge, you're not really cheating by using a guide in those games because really they're supposed to be community efforts anyway. So, like, a guide is part of that community effort. Especially with the messages that you can send each other and stuff like that, and everybody, like, group trying to figure those games out. Mm-hmm. I would say that those games are enjoyable, much more enjoyable with the guides, and most RPGs are. I would say.
Yeah, I was thinking about games such as Valkyrie Profile and Lightning Returns, where they're time-based systems.
Oh yeah.
And if you play those on your own, there's tons of stuff you'll miss, and you'll probably get really pissed off because you might feel underpowered because you can't really grind and stuff like that. And I agree that for a lot of RPGs, sometimes they need guides, and I have nothing against guides. I use them all the time. I try not to, but at the same time, if I just want to use a guide, I can use a guide. There's no reason not to.
Not to mention, even outside of needing a guide, if you want to, like, get that one thing you missed, what are you going to do? Play the RPG again? Like, you might, but short RPGs are like 15 hours. Like, do you really want to?
That's actually one of my pet peeves is missing things in games.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
Especially like if it's stuff I care about, like or something that alters the storyline. Like I get like a better ending if I miss something that was totally like arcane.
Yeah, Cave Story does that, where you're supposed to not take the first jetpack upgrade because there's a better one later, and you can only get one of them. And it's like, you're not gonna know that.
I kind of hate that type of game design. In some ways, it's cool that it's there, but it should be a little more obvious when you're making a major decision.
Actually, you know what I thought was really funny? There's a friend of ours from college. I mean, I knew him before you guys did, but you guys would have met him in college. And one of his favorite RPGs is Xenogears for the PS1. And he was really proud of his save file because he had gotten everything in it. But then in college, he learned that no, he didn't. And like this didn't really matter for the purpose of anything but bragging rights, but it still was a blow. Because you know how some RPGs, well, not even RPGs, you know how some games have that one boss fight that's unwinnable because you just have to die at that part, and then the game takes you to the next place.
Yeah.
Turns out the fight was winnable, and like, no way. Like, you have to like equip all this dodge stuff onto your character. Like, there's this fight where like an alpha Weltall shows up. I think it's piloted by Graf, and you can win that fight, and you get a unique item for it. And when my friend found that out, he was so mad.
So this is pretty funny. You guys and the audience here knows that I didn't really play RPGs until later.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't until college until I played Chrono Trigger for the first time.
Oh God, so much stuff.
Well, here's the funny thing. Everybody's gonna laugh at this, but I defeated Magus when you're supposed to lose against him, so he'll join your party.
Oh yeah.
I actually just beat him. And I never got to use him in my party. I didn't even know you were supposed to be able to.
That's kind of funny.
He just kind of fucks off, and you never see him for the rest of the game after you beat him up.
And well, but that sucks though. Like when you miss a whole character in a big RPG, like Vincent in FF7, it's just like you don't want to miss a character in your party.
Yeah,
it's like especially Suikoden.
Cool.
Like Suikoden, there's like how many characters that can join your party that you can miss? Like so many.
It's one of those things where like the idea is cool that hey, there's all this stuff going on and like you can miss these things, or might be another player might play it and get a different outcome on certain things, and it's really, really neat to have that on paper. It's really neat. But when you're playing it, and certain people who have certain like I'm a completionist, so that just really irks me when stuff like that happens, and I have to go out of my way, go online. I kind of just want to sit down and play the game, but
like it's like maxing the social links. It's like maxing social links in Persona 4.
Yeah, every single choice that comes up, I'm like, wait, I have to go online and see if I'm making the right choice here.
Yeah, and that makes me very like nervous to play a game, and it doesn't let me play it organically, which
And in Demons and Dark Souls, where everything autosaves when you like kill that one character that matters, it's like, oh
yeah, no. and I only really have enough time to play most games one time, so I mean. I'll go back to an old favorite that won't take long to play, but I just hate that I have to throw 20 hours out of the window because, I accidentally killed Magus or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, that irks me, and actually, having to play with the guide is, or even for like things like Knights of the Round, geez, you're never going to figure that out.
Actually, even playing with a guide, I get a little nervous because what if the guide isn't comprehensive? like if you guys, well, Pyro, I don't know about you, but Vice, you might remember that. Did you remember when I was playing Baten Kaitos back in college?
I don't remember.
I
Okay,
remember you talking about it.
Yeah, so Baten Kaitos, the thing with that is it's a card-based fighting system. So you draw from a deck and you use the cards to deal damage and defend. And there is an insane amount of cards in the game that you only have one chance to get, that you don't realize you have one chance to get. And I had beaten the game, but I actually played through it again, this time with a one-chance Magus guide. The cards are called Magus. There was a one-shot Magus guide, and the one-shot Magus guide was missing one of the cards. I was so mad. Like, it's like if you talk to this person before she joins your party, she gives you this one like fighting glove or whatever, and it's just like, you don't need it, but for completion's sake, I still have not completed all the Magus, and I think how many people use these archiving sites, but I think there's only been one person who's ever like done it on 100% sort of like how long, like I forgot what that website's called. It's like how long to win or something like that, where you could actually look up how long a game is if you just want to beat it, how long it takes if you want to 100% it. I think only one person did the 100% one, because seriously, to hell with that. Like, I might want to go back and finish it at some point, but it's such a pain considering that so many of the cards are straight up useless. Like, they're just for decoration, but like just for bragging rights.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, I don't like using a guide for certain types of games where like the problem solving is the whole game. Like, for instance, I'm not going to use a guide. I'm not putting anybody down who does, but I'm not going to use a guide for playing something like Portal 2.
Oh, okay. Or like Phoenix Wright or something, where like that's the game.
Well, Phoenix Wright actually has some moments in the series where it's damn near impossible to play because the character's lying to you.
Oh, well, Danganronpa then maybe?
No. I'm particularly, and some of the fans will know this, the second Phoenix Wright game has this clown that is nearly impossible to get through organically because he intentionally jokes around and misleads you, unlike any other character in the series. Like,
that's such a pain.
And so you're just supposed to kind of get through it eventually, but there's no way to actually do it organically unless you just do trial and error. It's just stupid. So, like, they never return to that type of character ever again because of it. But, like, I don't mind getting through that. But, for instance, like, if I was playing the Talos Principle, I'm not going to use a guide.
I used a guide like crazy for that game because, like, for my Let's Play, it is ridiculous. Like, I cut out half-hour segments of some of my installments because they were just me farting around and not getting the job done. Well, I know that the beauty of the game comes from discovering it yourself, and there really is a good feeling from that. But I didn't want, like, I don't even know how many hours of junk footage of me just getting angry.
Well, that's the thing. You're doing it for a performance. You're doing it for other people's. You kind of need a script for that. Well, so I don't mind that kind of usage.
Well, I will
if I'm playing it by myself and not for anybody else's benefit, I'm going to not use a guide unless I'm super, super frustrated.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Oh, by the way, one thing actually I had forgotten about. There's one thing that one of our friends from college mentioned that absolutely requires a guide. Because there's a part in the game where you actually think that there might be a bug, and there isn't. It's Flower, Sun, and Rain for the Nintendo DS.
Oh, yeah.
And my friend told me about this one part, and it's hilarious, and it's not supposed to be. I don't remember what the context was, but there's some part where you're getting a quiz or something, and it says, what's the drinking age? So what is the drinking age, by the way?
It's 21 in the US, but it's 18 for Japanese.
I think it's supposed to be 20 in Japanese, but like whatever. But like, yeah, the point was they never tell you it's the Japanese drinking age. And like, so you're just like 21. It's like wrong. You're like, what?
No, but they didn't properly localize the game. They just translated it.
Yeah, so it's just like it's unwinnable. It's like unless you go out of your way to look up something.
Well,
but yeah, I guess that might cover the first question then. But
yeah, for sure. Since we have so many, we should move on. But to answer your question, yeah, we use guides all the time and don't really see a problem with it. I mean, guides are a lot of times just supplemental material that'll help you get through or play a certain way. And some games are impossible to play without them, or near impossible.
Yeah, and it might depend on my mood too. Like if I'm trying to collect every item in the game, I will totally use a guide. But if I only care about the story, like Uncharted 4, for example, I just wanted to beat the game. Like, there's no real need for a guide for that, unless you're stuck on one of the puzzles or something. But, but if I'm Let's Playing, though, I will very likely use a guide, unless I know the game really well, because I want to make it efficient and comprehensive. Now, the second question is from Saturn Otaku, and I'm going to read this verbatim. What is your favorite self-referential and or fourth wall breaking moment in a game? For example, when Psycho Mantis reads your memory card during your encounter in Metal Gear Solid. Like, I played the GameCube. I've only played the GameCube version of Metal Gear Solid 1. So I got that little goofy bit, like, I see you've played Super Smash Bros. Melee before. And it just sounds so alien coming from a Metal Gear Solid game.
I would say probably the most inventive one. Metal Gear 1s are like, that's a great part of the series. I mean, you love that one in particular with Metal Gear Solid 4 where Psycho Mantis tries to vibrate your controller and you have a regular 6-axis.
That was funny as when I played
just
it.
Can't.
Yeah, because
he has
like
no ability to vibrate your controller.
yeah, when Metal Gear Solid 4 came out, I don't know if the rumble controller was really popularized yet, so I watched it on my friend's controller, and he just goes, "No rumble either!" And he just retreats. But when I later got a copy of the game, I have a rumble controller. So when that scene came up, he just said, "Yes, this is real power!" And then flies off. It's just a little sound bit difference. Actually, Metal Gear Solid 4 also has another moment where when you go into the area where you change discs in Metal Gear Solid 1, there's a part kind of like that in 4, and Otacon actually comes up with your message, and he's like, "Snake, it's time to change discs." And my friend and I got really nervous because we're pretty sure there was only one disc in the case. And then all of a sudden Otacon's like, "Oh, wait a minute. I forgot. Like, you're playing with a Blu-ray. Wow, technology has advanced in all these years." And Snake actually says, like, "Damn it, Otacon." It's really funny.
I mean, he's particularly known for that, and they have some of my best ones. But I'm gonna try to name some ones outside of that I remember off the top of my head.
I got some real winners.
The coolest one that I know that are outside of the Kojima ones are is actually the original X-Men game.
Oh, I was going to mention that one. Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, that one's really great because you actually have to hit the reset button on your system to progress past the game.
You beat the boss of the level, and you encounter this big computer terminal, and somebody, I think Professor X, goes like, "You have to reset the system." So I'm like, well, I can jump, I can punch, and I can use my mutant power. So one of these, jump is going to do nothing. So when you activate the computer, like you just punch it and it explodes, and you're just left there. And it's like you soft lock the game, you can't move. And the thing is, the level's on a timer. And when the timer goes to 0, it's not a death, it's a game over, straight up. So you're just sitting there panicking. But sure enough, when you press the reset button on your Sega Genesis, it just shows a cutscene of the Blackbird flying to the last level of the game. I could not freaking believe it. And by the way, speaking of which, this game is utterly unbeatable on a Sega Nomad because it has no reset button.
There are also versions of the Genesis that don't reset the game the same way.
Well, like Genesis
I believe
3?
The Genesis 3, yeah. You can't get past that part in X-Men because of the way that it resets.
I played it on a Genesis 2 at the time, and that worked.
There's a problem with Genesis 2s with that because a lot of Genesis 2s have terrible buttons for the reset button.
Oh, so I lucked out.
like a lot of those buttons don't work anymore. So like I had that problem actually with my Genesis 2 when I had a Genesis 2. So that one's cool if you don't find out that your system can't handle it by the time you got to that. And that game's not easy, so getting that far in the game and then getting a game over or finding out that you can't get past that really pisses you off.
There's an infinite health code, but even with it, like, the game is no joke. By the way, Pyro, actually there's one, this is not one of my favorites, but this actually pertains to us with our Danganronpa playthrough. There's a part in one of the trials, I'm not going to say which trial or anything at risk of spoiling something, but Celeste, the gambler, is telling us about a thing that happened in the past, and there's a scene with her and Hifumi, and Celeste finishes talking, and she says, "And that completes it." And Hifumi's like, "What?" And we were looking at the game like, why would she say that when Hifumi's around? Like, it just seemed like a really talking to herself moment. But someone told me that in the Japanese, it makes more sense because Celeste is telling us about a flashback in which she was talking. So apparently Celeste talking to us was saying, "And that completes it," meaning like my story of what happened. And Hifumi went like, "What?" as if he were hearing her voice. So it was kind of a fourth wall moment, and it just didn't really work for us.
I really like certain games that reference the player in general. Like somebody like the player is a character. That's another thing I like in ActRaiser, for instance. I'm a big fan of ActRaiser, the original. Well, you're like, just like in any Sims, like in SimCity, you're like the mayor. Well, in that game, you're God, and
that's right. Yeah.
And you're dealing out orders to your cherubs and stuff to get people to build, things and stuff like that.
Same goes for Dungeon Keeper. Like they keep talking to you, like your creatures are under attack, like et cetera, et cetera. Oh, actually, speaking of referring to the player as a character, they do that in Super Smash Brothers Wii U and 3DS, where they're describing Duck Hunt, and they say like, actually, there's 3 members of the Duck Hunt team. I wonder who that third member is watching over them. That's like you with the light gun. I thought that was pretty clever.
Oh, and we played this Pony Island.
Oh god, that entire game is fourth wall.
Yeah. I mean, that game.
Some of the moments, I think our favorite was the final, not the final boss, but the final normal boss, the one that was talking to us.
Yeah.
When it goes, can you pay attention to what I'm doing? And then like one of your Steam friends talks to you, except no.
yeah. That was awesome. Like you're that was almost like in the style of Eternal Darkness, because
I was going to mention that one actually.
Eternal Darkness has a ton of those kinds of things, but what was so cool about that is it uses the fact that you use Steam, and it uses an actual one of your friends. I was like, when I was playing it with you, I was like, why would like one of my friend I hadn't talked to him in a long time. Why would he like message me all of a sudden? It just didn't make sense.
That's fantastic.
So we knew what was going on, but it took us a couple seconds. It's like, I'm just like, why would he say that to me? Like,
yeah.
Like
actually, I got a
Super
couple.
Hot has moments like that too.
Actually, I got a couple. One of them for Super Fourth Wall. I don't play it, and I don't even own it. But there's the game on Steam, Invisible Ink. As in incorporated, but it's a clever little pun. One of the achievements can be acquired by going into the game's config menu and adjusting some things, because like you're a bunch of hackers in the game, so it's like, what if I hack my config menu? And some people complained about that because like you're cheating to get an achievement, but no, that's actually how you get the achievement. You're supposed to mess with your game's config files, which I thought was pretty clever.
That's awesome.
But no, regarding Eternal Darkness, it was a lot of fun for me, but I think the most fun I had with Eternal Darkness's fourth wall moments was watching you in college. You may or may not remember this, but one of the game's sanity effects, because the game has sanity effects where like your character might suddenly die or be really small, but some of these sanity effects are fourth wall breaking. Like it'll show your TV's volume going down, or it'll make it look like the game reset and you go to the title screen again and you panic and then it flashes back. But one of my favorites was in Eternal Darkness, you can save anytime you'd like. Anytime, as long as there are no enemies in the room. If there are enemies, it says like, oh, darkness is drawing near or whatever, but if you're ever alone, you could save on the fly. It's fantastic. But don't forget to do it, or else, when you die, you're kicked to the title screen and you have to reload. But you can save whenever you want. So whenever you do, it says, are you sure you want to save? Are you sure you want to overwrite the file? And this is on the GameCube, so you just press A for yes and B for no. So sometimes, for a sanity effect, it'll say, do you want to delete your entire memory card? And the funny thing about that is the player tends to be fooled by that, even though it makes no sense for you to be able to delete other files on your memory card, like during a game, like in the middle of a game, you're not in the menu at all, but it's just like, do you want to delete all of your memory card's files? And you actually caught that message before you button mashed through it, and you were like, oh no, and you press the B button and the little loading bar comes up and it's like deleting memory card, and you were like, B means no. It was like the funniest thing for me. I was freaking dying when I saw it. That was great. That was hilarious.
Yeah, that does sound like something I would say.
You were so panicked. You're like, it was amazing.
Yep, that's right. How about you, Pyro? Do you have any examples?
No, I was, as you two were talking, I was trying to think of some, but I can't really think of any at the spur of the moment that I really enjoyed. But I do like when games do it. Actually, I do like when games throw that at you and like kind of have that feeling like, hey, we know you're playing the game. We'll joke around with you.
To be fair, the question says fourth wall breaking and or self-referential. Can you think of any self-referential moments? Like, oh yeah, this game would do something like that, am I right? That kind of thing. My favorite regarding that one is the ending of Dead Space 2, because the ending of Dead Space 1, I'm not going to say what happens in the plot, but you sit down in your pilot's chair, and then you look over and you see someone's next to you, and it's like the game ends with a jump scare. And it's really obnoxious, actually. And in the second game, the same thing happens. You sit down in your chair and you look over and you see someone's next to you, and that person just kind of looks back and goes, what? and then it just goes to credits. It's like, it's amazing. It's so fantastic. It's
Yeah,
so
no, I
because you're
can't
staring
think
at
of
this
any of
person
those
all
right now
nervously, and the
either.
person's like, it's really amazing.
I tend to like things that are parodies of themselves, like
Yeah.
for instance, Crank and Crank 2. I mean, or Gremlins and Gremlins 2. I mean, those two sequels are you cannot understand how funny they are without seeing the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that should be obvious that you should always, you should watch movies in order, that kind of thing, read books in order, play games in order, but like those movies are impossible to get their very insular brands of humor without watching the first ones, because like the second Gremlins is just like basically making fun of the entire plot of the first movie. Like,
I remember they were asking pedantic questions like, why is after midnight? 1 o'clock in the morning is after midnight, but that's morning, so what does that mean? Is it before midnight or after midnight? Yeah.
And they just like shrug off everything.
Shut up.
And one of the big moments in Gremlins 1 that was kind of controversial is the girlfriend talks about how her father died while, like, Christmas is a bad holiday for her because her father died while dressed up as Santa Claus trying to go down the chimney. He, like,
that's
broke his
really
neck.
dark.
So it's funny because in the second one she talks about how she had a really bad President's Day experience. it's just getting really stupid, and she's like talking about how her uncle died or something. It's just
That's
really
awesome.
They took like the most like the
why
most
would you
serious
remember-
moment of the first movie and totally lampooned it.
This isn't self-referential, but that reminds me of that Shut Up and Jam Gaiden thing where it's like, oh no, I have a curse that activates every Columbus Day. It's like, what?
There's just stuff like that. Like Crank 2 it pretty much exactly has the plot of Crank 1.
Yes.
And it knows it.
And it's
and
even
it even
stupider.
And like the sidekick in it is not the guy from the first one, but it is. It's the same actor, but they just like hand waved it by saying he had a twin. Like he's exactly the same, but he has Tourette's. But it's just like really funny.
But the funny thing is that like normally movies hand wave that kind of thing to explain why they have a different actor, but here they just like they didn't need to change anything, but they did because it was stupid.
Yeah, and like he's doing all the same, like he's even going to some of the same locations in the first one, and he's like doing an even dumber version of what he was doing in the first one.
It's brilliant.
And like he even like whistles like his own theme song, like somehow he knows what his theme song is.
He's in a movie.
I particularly like fourth wall breaking in movies just because it's like in Deadpool. Deadpool does it perfectly.
Well, actually, there was the actually kind of iconic moment because it like kind of kickstarted a lot of movie producers doing it. But in the original Evil Dead, where blood splatters on the camera, so it's like there's a camera.
Yeah, it's it's calling out the existence of the camera being there. Which is pretty awesome.
Actually, you know what I didn't realize though is that the Rocky Horror Picture Show did that first. Well, I don't know about first, but before, because in Tim Curry's big intro song, they have like the Sweet Transvestite from Transsexual Transylvania song. There's a part where he just gets a cup of water and then takes a sip of it and then just splashes the rest of it into the camera, and it's like, oh, huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I love stuff like that, and
well, actually, one of the if we're going outside of the context of games, I'm surprised you didn't mention one of I think your favorites, that one Animal Man comic.
Oh yeah, so there are two bits of writing that I'm going to mention here that are essential for this particular trope, and that is the Animal Man series that was written by Grant Morrison in the 80s. And also the Dark Tower series in particular is incredibly fourth wall breaking.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And it's essential to the story. So I would say, and I'm not going to say why, because both of these are also go hand in hand. They kind of have the same thing going on. But they are particularly poignant because of the way they break the fourth wall. So if anybody is interested in a really awesome comic book, there are some people that aren't big fans of Grant Morrison, and it's understandable. He has a very strange way of telling stories in comics, and he's a little hard to read sometimes, and people don't always like his ideas because they're really off the wall. And I'm not going to ruin this for anybody, but this is one of his more straightforward stories, and it's told in 3 trade paperbacks, and you need to read the whole thing. The first one starts off pretty normal, but it's just written well at that point. But then it gets more and more fourth wall breaky, and it does some really cool things with that. And the third book is particularly touching. I really love that third book, and it's kind of a shame that you have to buy 3 trades to get to it, because it gets going, at more and more as time goes on, and why it's special is more apparent as time goes on. So like, don't just read the first volume, read all 3, and it won't take all that much time. But the Dark Tower series is very much in the same light. It doesn't get like that until like the 5th book.
Yeah, that sounds right, actually. Yeah, it's the 5th. It looks like a filler arc, but then you realize there's more going on.
Well, there's some hints at that kind of stuff earlier, but it doesn't really get prominent.
Part 5, it's like, hey, that's that thing from this, and it's like, oh, just straight up.
Yeah, so there's a lot of references to other works in there too. So that's a fourth wall break too. Like there's even references. Like I'm not breaking anything here, but I'm not spoiling anything. There's even like references to stuff like Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking actually. Yeah.
That makes me think of Cromartie High School has stuff like that.
Oh wow, that takes me back. Oh, Cromartie was awesome.
Yeah, I think that I love stuff like that, especially if it's particularly done well. I don't like it when it's just like a wink at the camera, and I don't like it if it's like super like it just has to be well done. I don't like it when it's super hammy about that kind of thing. One game in particular that I can think of right off the bat that has humor that just like slaps you in the face rather than actually being clever. It was Retro City Rampage. I don't know if you guys got a chance to play that.
I haven't played it, but I heard it was popular.
Oh yeah, I played that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun game and all, and it has a lot of references, and if you like references, just to have references, that's cool. But it's like some people were thinking that about Sunset Overdrive as well, because the game knows that it's a video game. And
I remember the trailer that's how the trailer was portrayed, where the guy was, I mean, literally talking to the camera, like, you're gonna play as me, kind of, like, you're the hero, etc., etc.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how
it's implemented.
How it's implemented, yeah, exactly. If it's subtle, usually subtlety always wins in this kind of thing. And especially if most games, you're not going to even think that there is going to be a fourth wall thing unless somebody tells you about it. So like you're caught up in your own world, and you don't think that you have to think in the game's logic in order to figure something out. But there are certain games that take you by surprise and say, "Oh wait, remember that this game is a game, and you can do things in real life."
Actually, speaking of that, I'm going to give you an exact opposite example of this game is a game. I think this might be even a good one to close on because it's like kind of all encompassing. But and I'm not going to spoil the plot here because that really matters. But BioShock Infinite, there is a character in the game who can kind of like tear holes in space and cross through dimensions. Kind of like a JoJo character who I won't spoil because we haven't gotten to that part in the anime yet. But this person can tear open walls and dimensions and just that becomes a gameplay mechanic. Like you can get this person to summon ammo or platforms for you and everything. But the very first time you see this person tear open a wall in space, what you see behind the wall is a movie theater in France that says, like, the marquee in French says Revenge of the Jedi, which was Return of the Jedi's working title. So that's kind of like, this is a video game, I can tell because I'm playing it, but it's also real. Like, the game crosses over with real life. It was just like, it was such a freaking weird moment.
Like, our universe is a universe that can be traveled to from the game's point of view.
And by the way, the first time I saw it was actually, I was watching the Video Games Awesome guys on Far From Subtle playing, I think, the demo. So it wasn't established, like, France didn't become relevant to the plot yet. So it was just Revenge of the Jedi in English. So it was even more of kind of an impact on me, because it was like, this is just probably an American theater, because a lot of the game's aesthetic is like Southern America. It's like, this is an American theater with just Revenge of the Jedi, like, which, by the way, was in the really early 1980s. So there's that aspect of it too. It's also going through time, so it's like, what is happening? Like, it's absolute. So theoretically, BioShock Infinite could cross over with every video game ever made, because it crosses over with real life, and we can play every video game ever made.
By the way, in the Marvel universe, our universe is one of the numbered universes.
Oh, I heard about that. That's super cool.
Yeah, because they've accounted for multiple universes in the comic book dumb. You know, there was the Ultimate Universe, there was the 2099 universe, that kind of thing. So they accounted for the real world being one of the universes. It's just one without any superheroes.
Oh, and in Golden Axe Arcade, of course, everybody just jumps out of the arcade machine and just runs through the streets of, I don't know what city, but maybe probably Tokyo. It's a big city, Japan. So you just have our heroes from Golden Axe chasing Golden Axe enemies through the real world streets.
And then it ends.
Yeah, game over. Like, what? It's just a silly ending.
Yeah, so I think we hit a lot of those there, but
Yeah.
My favorite examples are usually Suda 51 ones, Hideo Kojima ones, that X-Men one, and what the particular ones in films I really like, and those two, the comic book and the Animal Man and Dark Tower series do that particularly well, and that's why so many people love Deadpool too. So
sure, yeah, Deadpool's become more and more of a fourth wall breaker. He could see he'd see and read his own text boxes and argue with them. Okay, so question number 3 from Gorilla Man. I'd like to hear what you guys think about how the franchise of certain video games have changed, like Resident Evil and Devil May Cry. You know, like Resident Evil's gone from survival horror to more over-the-shoulder shooters, for example. Devil May Cry has changed, I guess, with the 4th game. I think the gameplay is similar, but, like, it's changed in terms of how it's portrayed. And your opinions on Resident Evil 7, and maybe what you thought about Metal Gear Phantom Pain.
Okay, I can particularly answer this one. So I am not a person that is rooted, that needs tradition to take over. I like new ideas. I like it when brand new concepts are tried, as long as they're done in a way that ends up being quality or brings new ideas, and isn't a complete failure. In particular, I'm thinking this is actually pretty timely. Metroid Prime Federation Force just came out this week.
Yeah, for the 3DS.
And it's a different type of game than anything else in the series. It's just using the setting.
Yeah, you don't even... I think you can meet Samus or something, but you don't play as her.
Yeah, and it's a co-op kind of experience, almost like, kind of like... Peace Walker or Monster Hunter in that way. It's a 4-player game, and you take down objectives And I don't have a problem with that. I know there are a lot of people that are upset about that, and I understand, especially considering that Metroid Prime and its sequels are some of my favorite games of all time. They probably, if you counted them all as one game in the trilogy, I would say that they're probably my second favorite game of all time, behind Gunstar Heroes. But I would say that I'm not mad. I am mad that they're not continuing with another Metroid in the same style, but I'm not mad that they made this game. If that makes sense. I'm more upset that they haven't made a different game in the series at the same time, maybe.
So I guess you'd be happiest if they released a traditional Metroid game and then released this one?
Oh, I would love that.
As opposed to, like, you know how you've been wanting a Metroid game forever? Nope, here's this instead.
I mean, I don't have a problem with new takes on series. I actually really love Resident Evil 4 and 5. I know that 5 is contentious.
5, I thought the story was one of the dumbest things, but the gameplay was some of the most fun I've had in a Resident Evil game. And even when someone explained that the story itself might be stupid on purpose as sort of a joke of how ridiculous the whole plot is, if you think about it, that kind of does make it a little better for me. Yeah,
I mean, I like stupid humor, so I have a pretty high brow taste in a lot of different things, including movies, but I also really like stupid stuff. On top of that, I like things that are gloriously intelligently stupid.
Swiss Army Man.
Yeah,
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, we watched Swiss Army Man together in the theater.
That movie is so good.
I can't even describe it to the audience other than it's Daniel Radcliffe playing a dead man that's not quite dead, and
he can be
has
used
some
for
of
things.
the most poignant. It has some of the most poignant moments in a movie I've ever seen, but it also has some of the dumbest, silliest, infantile bullshit.
It opens and closes with a fart joke.
Yeah, I mean, and I love that, and I don't care.
To be fair, also, it's handled in a very different way from what you'd think. Very different.
I mean, I love stuff like that, so I think that's fine, and I like that Resident Evil has this kind of thing, but I wish they would ever. I love the action-oriented Resident Evil, the behind the shoulder camera stuff that series has pioneered for the rest of video gamedom. There really weren't games like that. There were games every once in a while, like there was Win Back and occasional games, but none of them had really done it as good as Resident Evil 4 at that time. And then it just got better. It had strafing later on with 5.
Well, not to mention camera control, the right stick, because I played Resident Evil 4 years later, and I was like, whoa, how was this so easy for me before?
Yeah. You go back to it, and Resident Evil 4 is great, but you have to remember that there's no strafing in it.
No strafing, but also... Yeah. Again, no camera control. Like, you can turn your character and then lock the camera behind him, but that's as good as it's gonna get.
Yeah. I think they fixed that with the HD version.
Oh, did they really? That's cool.
Yeah, I think they fixed that, but there's still no strafing because that would break the game.
It really would.
But, like, I would say that I'm okay with these kinds of things, but I also want the old styles to appear every once in a while.
Yeah, I don't want them to forget where they came from.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Resident Evil 6, it was at, like, the developers had mentioned, they were trying to make it like Call of Duty, and it's like, dude, I didn't buy Call of Duty. Like, there are lots of Call of Duty games I could buy. I bought a Resident Evil game, so I expect to play one, you know?
Yeah, I feel torn a lot with this, because part of me wants them to move on from old stuff and try something new, and but at the same time, if I like the old games, I kind of would like to try that. But at the same time, another thing is when you have a game and then you make a sequel of it that's completely different, why does it share the name? It basically is just a business decision then.
That's the thing. It's like Resident Evil. I mean, this isn't quite fair, but regarding Resident Evil 7, I have not seen any gameplay footage of it, and I'm actively avoiding it. But I played the demo. But the demo, it was stated, was not representative of the final product. It was just like, basically look at what we can do with our engine. But Resident Evil 7's demo was walking around in the first person through a creepy house, almost like PT. But like, there was absolutely nothing Resident Evil about it. So why did you call it?
And I heard the game's not even going to be like that.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not. Like, there's no zombies. There's some creepy, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre like family, I guess, that jumps you from behind. Like, I get that maybe we'll be using this engine or something like it, maybe, in Resident Evil 7, but why did you call this the Resident Evil 7 demo? Why didn't you just call it, like, the new thing that Capcom is doing? I mean, I guess if you call it Resident Evil, people will download it because they know what it is, but, like...
I guess that's, like, kind of like a viral marketing thing, almost. Like, I don't know if you guys remember this, but, like, before Halo 2 came out, there was a huge fervor around it. Like, there was a lot of rumors going around, and this was also before, like, the internet was super, super popular.
Yeah, this was, like, what, like 1999, 2000?
So, no, it was 2004, between 2004 and 2005.
Okay, so we had mediocre internet at the time.
Yeah, but, like, only, like, real super nerds were using it, or college students at the time. And, I had just graduated from using dial-up at the time. People were just getting broadband, really.
Yeah.
So, anyway, at the time, they launched a website called iHeartBees, or ilovebees.com, and you go there and you think it's just like this blog about this lady who is like taking care of bees, but like it's really weird and it's like broken in some parts, and you just click around and eventually you find out that it's like a teaser for Halo 2. Like it was something that was kind of going around, and like you could find this drawing of one of the insect-like characters that kind of looks like a bee.
Oh, that's cool.
It's one of the bad guys, one of the class of bad guys. So I mean that I think Resident Evil 7 is kind of like doing that. They know how popular PT was.
The Resident Evil 7 demo really did seem like kind of a middle finger to Konami. Like, you're not going to make that? We'll make it.
Yeah, I mean,
and
they probably knew that they could get people talking about it in that way by having something like that.
The game did play exactly like PT.
So well, I don't have many issues with that. I guess the one that I in particular that I'm real sore about, and I just really wish that Sega would make an old-style Phantasy Star game again. So they made Phantasy Star 1 through 4, and it was actually a cohesive story with maybe 3 is not really part of it, but 1, 2, and 4 are very much sequels to each other. And continue along the same line and also tell a cohesive story. Every Phantasy Star game past that, I mean, the next one that came out was Phantasy Star Online, which is cool. They used an existing property to come out with Phantasy Star, but every game since then has been a Phantasy Star Online game. Even if it's an offline game, it's been an online game. In that it mimics the gameplay style of Phantasy Star Online and only references things that are in Phantasy Star Online, and even the game Phantasy Star Zero for the DS, which I was like, oh man, this is gonna finally be a regular RPG. And probably tie in with the rest of the universe. No, it's a Phantasy Star Online style game, where you do that, the raid hunting kind of stuff. I guess the closest thing that's played right now in America is Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter's the same kind of game, sort of, to Phantasy Star Online. So, I guess. That's my major gripe, is that Sega's not making another traditional RPG, or like a one-player focused traditional RPG set in the Phantasy Star universe. I don't care that they're making these other games. I don't care that they're making Phantasy Star Universe, that kind of thing. I love that they're filling those needs and those fans have those. But I hate that they're ignoring the old style altogether.
Yeah, what brought us to them in the first place?
There's also another series that they're doing that with, and that's the Shining Force series.
I was waiting for you to bring that up. Yep.
Also
Sega.
Yeah, exactly. Ever since Shining Force 3 and Traveler's Tales, I think it is, left Sega, they left their old style of Shining games behind. I mean, all those games, there's Shining in the Darkness. There wasn't just Shining Force, but there was Shining in the Darkness, Shining the Holy Ark, and Shining Wisdom. They all had certain things that tied them together, the way the menus worked, and how they may have been different types of games. Like there's the strategy RPG, there's the dungeon crawler, and there's the regular RPG, but they all felt like they were cohesive. And then Shining, when it went to PS2, turned into a completely different type of series because the original people weren't making it like that anymore. They got new people to make it. It became a game series that was kind of like Ys, but not as good. It's like an action-oriented RPG series with really kind of crummy characters. And bad storylines that have nothing to do with anything from the original games. And I absolutely love those Shining games, the early ones. And it's kind of sad that they're all like that now. And we don't even get those games anymore because they weren't popular because they're not good.
Yeah.
So they're still making them, but they're like almost over half of the new ones haven't been translated at all.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, for the last part of the question, what are your takes on Metal Gear Phantom Pain? Closest I can say is I played Ground Zeroes and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm assuming Phantom Pain is that, but more and bigger, so I assume that I would like it. I'm just afraid to play it because it's like 100 hours for a freaking Metal Gear Solid game.
Oh, it's great. And I absolutely love that series. And I love that particular game. So I think you should go for it.
I will really eventually, but it's like longer than some RPGs I've played. Like, jeez.
Yeah, but it's fun. It keeps you interested.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure. I would say that I like all that kind of stuff, and I love it when they try new stuff. For instance, I'm going to bring up comics again. One of my favorite writers is Grant Morrison, and I said that again, with calling back to Animal Man. But there is a particular X-Men story that he wrote back in the early 2000s called The New X-Men. I believe it was called E is for Extinction, where they were actually going to say that all of the mutants on the planet were going to die out. And he did some really neat stuff with it, but fans hated it because it messed with the way things they had in their head.
Oh, I
and
see.
I hate being shackled to that because it just limits character growth. And I like it when they try something new. So what happened was there was this drug that came out in the X-Men universe that enhanced the mutants' powers and stuff like that while this was happening. And Magneto became like an addict of it, and he went nuts, like totally more nuts than usual, and destroyed New York City.
Damn.
And basically went nuts, and then Professor Xavier just wiped his brain. After that, he was just like, "No more of this. This has gone too far. Like, I could have always done this. You've gone way too far this time." And he wipes his brain. And people hated it, so they wrote it out of continuity. But I guess with comics you can do that. You could always have the option of writing it out.
Don't worry, he was a Skrull the whole time.
Exactly, but
that's so lame.
But I thought I liked it because they did something new.
Yeah,
but it's not the same X-Men story all the time.
At the same time, though, unless it's like a total, like, unanimously agreed upon disaster, I'm really bothered that you can always just undo that thing you did, so there's no consequences for anything.
there's never any consequences for anything in comics anyway.
I know, but that just bothers me. It's like the death of Superman. Whoa! Oh, wait a minute. He's DC's flagship property. They're gonna have to keep writing more Superman comics.
We had this conversation earlier, but did you really think that Captain America was going to be part of Hydra for longer than half a month? I mean,
really, I was thinking the same thing when I heard about that.
I mean, like really, like anybody who got butthurt over that, like they're way too into themselves. They don't realize. Hey, look, they're just trying to get people talking about it on the internet, which they did, by the way.
The man who was written in the 1940s by two Jews, where issue number 1 was punching Hitler in the face. At least the cover was, just the cover. Yeah, he was totally a Nazi the whole time, guys. The last 70 years of comic book history. Forget that he was a Nazi the whole time. Like, come on.
Get the hell out of here. I like that comics can do that kind of thing, but so to answer your question roundabout, we go off in tangents. That's kind of our shtick, but
yeah,
I'm okay with it as long as it's quality and as long as they realize that there's still stuff to be mined in the old way. If that answers your question at all. Like, it just has to be done well. I just have to like it.
All right, now the last question is from Zero, the Fool Arcana 0. So it's the Fool Arcana surrounded by zeros. And I kind of like that, because, like, when I picture the Fool Arcana, I picture Iggy, Stan from JoJo. Pyro, I would assume maybe you were thinking something with the Persona series.
Yeah.
And Vice, the last time you saw the Fool, I think, was Silent Hill 3, like the actual tarot card.
No, the last time
you've been playing
I saw
Persona 3, right?
Yes. Oh. But the last time I saw the Fool was when I watched Beauty and the Beast, and LeFou was there.
Touche. Wow. All right. So anyway, this question.
Ever since I talked to that hairy old man.
Talk to that loony. Yeah, I forgot about that. The memes you swap the lyrics.
Crazy old Maurice.
Since I talked to that loony old man. All right. So here's the question. I know it was brought up briefly in one of the earlier podcasts, but I was wondering what your feelings were regarding the new Berserk movies and also the anime series is currently running. Now, I have not touched the anime series because I actually still need to see the third Berserk movie where the eclipse happens, so I can only really talk about the first two, but I'll say that it's refreshing to see that they're actually finally gonna freaking go past the Golden Age arc, finally, after like 20 years. So I'm happy, because like the anime only ever goes up to that point, and the movies only went up to that point. And I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. And the new animes, the series is finally going beyond that. Thank God. Like, how many times have we watched the damn Golden Age arc? It's great, but jeez. Now, the first two movies, I mean, what can I say? I really enjoyed them. The 3D sort of animation aesthetic is pretty jarring at first, because I haven't really seen anything like that before. So the animation looks weird at first, but once you get used to it, you can definitely get into it. So, like...
How about Futurama?
What about it?
Futurama uses that kind of 3D thing going on every once in a while.
Oh, okay.
Like with the ship.
But with the Berserk movies, though, that's the entire movie. Like, there's this weird, like, things look a little, like, almost too 3D. Like, it looks weird at first. Like, you're just not used to seeing anime in that style. So
is it kind of like Gantz's background?
I wouldn't know.
Oh, okay.
I've only read Gantz.
No. I mean, Gantz's manga.
Oh, I don't remember 3D. Oh, I mean, this is animated though. Like, I don't know. Like, it's really hard to describe. Just go to YouTube and look up just Berserk movie. Even the trailer, you'll see what they're talking about. It's really disorienting at first, but I mean, I learned to like it. It was just I just wasn't used to it, but it's actually pretty cool. It's really cool. It's going back to the manga. It's covering aspects that the original anime missed. Not to mention the entire existence of the Skull Knight, because the original anime has the eclipse scene, and then it's just like, oh my god, demons are attacking everybody, what are they going to do? And then it just smash cuts to Guts in the present, and it's like, how the hell did you escape that? We're not going to tell. Like, read the manga, losers. So the anime movies, I think, are going to address that, because the original anime actually missed a character who is directly responsible for Guts escaping the eclipse. So, like, if you know the manga, then based on the original anime, there was kind of no way for Guts to escape. Like, how did he escape? Shut up, that's how. So the new anime ought to cover that, so I'm excited.
I kind of gave it away, but I really haven't watched the anime version of Berserk, the either of them, to tell you the truth. I know that the original...
Oh, the old one. The old one's classic. The animation actually...
is really good, but it doesn't go past a certain point.
The old anime, the animation actually isn't even really very good, except for certain battle scenes. But, like, it's a really good series, though. It's totally worth watching, despite what I said about the very end, which makes no goddamn sense. It's a really good watch.
And let me just say this. I'm a huge Berserk fan, but you may ask me why I haven't seen all this stuff. It's because, I get distracted. But I'm a huge Berserk fan, and I plan on watching the old series and the new one. But I heard the new one is very accurate to the story.
It is.
So
I think you
like
actually did see the first of the movies with us way back when, but like it's been a very long time.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you that I'm probably going to like it. I don't see a world where I wouldn't, because everybody said good things. So I think the new series and the movies that they're making right now, I'm gonna like. Let me just say this though. I know it's a a popular thing, or like a kind of a snobby way of saying that the book is always better. But in this case, I'm going to say that I really like the manga better than any of the animated bits that I've ever seen.
Well, there is something to be said for that, though, for real.
Well, and I'm going to tell you why. The art in the manga is way better than any animation could ever be.
And it's the best art in any manga I've ever seen, by the way.
It's the best art in any comic book that I've ever read.
Like, even the individual small, like, not even the big splash pages, like, oh boy, you gotta see this. Like every frame, except for the ones that are drawn intentionally poorly because of comic relief, like Puck being stupid, where it's like the chibi look. Like, every frame, even the small ones, have way too much effort put into them. Like,
and they have insane. billions of lines. Yeah,
it is ridiculous.
Like, it's a black and white manga, but there's so much texture to the drawings that you could just sit back and look at them and know that they took a long time. And
you could really just like isolate a frame and like put it on a poster or something, like any of them.
Like, if anybody who it's also because he's kind of a troll and takes his time with things, but
yeah,
Kentaro Miura really does put tons of time and effort into every issue that he puts out, and it shows.
I actually mentioned that way back when I let's played the PS2 game. Like, most manga chapters come out weekly. At the time, his came out monthly. Now it's even longer because just obnoxious things I won't bother ranting about. But like back then they came out monthly, maybe a little longer, but when you looked at the chapters you could see exactly why it took so long. Like, that time went somewhere.
Yeah, I recommend to anybody who's not familiar with Berserk to just type Berserk manga into Google image search and just look at some of the stuff that comes up.
Oh, by the way, here's a fun fact. Speaking of, if you're not familiar with Berserk, Guts is the main character. He carries around a stupidly large sword on his back, and that was actually the inspiration for Cloud's Buster Sword in Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, okay.
Don't you mean Zax's?
Actually, good point, but the sword that Cloud wields.
In before Nerd Rant.
Yeah. Actually, he got it from Zack after the events of Crisis Core. But yeah, by the way, as an additional part in the question, I answered this much on YouTube, but he was asking if I was going to play the Muso game. I am hyped about the Muso game, but I kind of want to play...
Me too.
I want to play Zelda Muso first. I want to play any other number of games first. It'll be a while before I get to Berserk Muso, but I'm totally hyped about playing Berserk Muso because, for the record, Muso is like the Warriors games, like Dynasty Warriors, One Piece Pirate Warriors, Zelda Hyrule Warriors. Muso is just what it's called in Japan because sometimes the Warriors title just doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I mean, I will. I'm not a huge fan of the Dynasty Warriors games or the Samurai Warriors games, but I will. I do love like mindless brawlers.
Yeah, and the Fist of the North Star Warriors are about Kin's Rage, but that's actually a directly false title, by the way. So that's why I
he's never mad at anything.
Yeah, in fact, his most powerful move comes from like sadness,
crying.
Yeah, that's why I call it Hokuto Muso, because like Muso makes more sense. But like, I'm excited about Berserk Muso because the PS2 game was a Muso game without being a Muso game. Like it's kind of begged to be a Muso game the whole time.
It fits the property.
Yeah, Guts runs around and kills crowds of demons. So why not?
He's always killing like huge swathes of goons and going through different battles, and there are huge army battles going on.
I'm actually very curious about how the Muso game is going to end, because with One Piece Pirate Warriors 3, they had to like make up an ending for the Dressrosa arc because it wasn't done yet. So you had really weird shenanigans like Don Flamingo teaming up with Blackbeard, and it's like that never happened. But like
well Lotus, actually what happens is you're eternally in the sea level and you keep on playing it over and over again, and they keep telling you you're going to get closer to Elf Island, but you never do.
No, and they and in the manga they're there. They landed.
I know, that was my out of date
it took
Duke Nukem Forever joke. That's
But with Berserk, I'm curious as to what the final boss is going to be, because they're obviously going to have to make something up. The manga's not finished. Like, what is he going to do? Definitively beat the God Hands? Like, okay, I don't even think the God Hand would fight. They don't seem like the fighting type. It's like I actually think
they don't need to fight.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Like, I actually think that they're directly inspired by the Cenobites from Hellraiser, and you don't just like you don't just go up and punch a Cenobite. Like, they're kind of above that. Except for
they can warp reality. They don't need to physically fight you.
Yeah, like you're in hell now. Like and before, by the way, before somebody says, "Oh, but the Cenobites fought each other in 2." Like, yeah, I know, and I think that was kind of the weakest part of the entire movie. But like the Cenobites in general, and especially in the first movie, you don't fight them. They stand there and look intimidating, and bad stuff happens to you. So like the God Hand, I feel, is like that. Like, especially because Guts has a brand on his neck that bleeds when demons are nearby, and if he gets too close to one of the members of the God Hand, it bleeds so profusely he kind of like is subdued just from that. So like, what are you gonna do? Just like, what are you gonna do? Are you just gonna fight Femto? Because like, he literally can't. It's not gonna happen. So I'm curious as to where that's gonna go.
So yeah, if it's Berserk related, more than likely I'm going to like it. Just I'm putting that out there. Usually stuff associated with it is high quality, because it's not like a super. Even in Japan, it's not like one of those. It's not like a shonen anime where like tons of people and tons of marketing surrounding it. It's actually kind of hard to find merch for it. For Berserk, it's gotten better over the years, but it's gotten more and more popular in both territories.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not one of those things that has tons of stuff cranking out for it.
Well,
like
especially because
Evangelion, like everything else other than the main series in Evangelion's kind of like garbage.
Well, but especially with Berserk though, it is extremely sexually and violently explicit. Like that. Yeah. That is like. You cannot go to a bookstore and just flip open to a random page of the manga, because if somebody looks over your shoulder, like, they're gonna be like, "Oh my god!" Like, that is not safe. Like, not safe in front of parents, not safe in front of crowds. Like, you really like, even though like it's not like a porn book or anything, even though there's sexual content in it. But the main thing is the violence. It is exceedingly like even like America doesn't care about violence as much as Japan does, because Japan has a big problem with dismemberment. In fact, the Berserk PS2 game was given the rated 18 rating in Japan, and that never happens. And it was for violence. There's no sexual content in that game. But like, America's more forgiving for violence, but Berserk is so violent. Although some of the sexual content does get pretty actually up there.
I actually have a story about that.
I think I know what this one is actually.
I was coming home from New York, and I was in New York Penn Station, coming home on the train and waiting for my train to get there to go back to New Jersey, and coming back from one of our parties up in New York, and I was reading the latest English release of Berserk, and usually it's just violent, and usually it's okay, but the one that I was reading had like a like
the pagan orgy.
A pagan goat orgy.
It was really
and it's really explicit.
Yeah, because the thing is, if people on the train catch you reading the really violent parts of the manga, there's a chance they might say something, but probably not. They might just be like, ugh, not for me. But like the pagan orgy, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, I immediately closed the book
It's
because
so
if
bad.
anybody, and the thing is, it goes on for a while in the book
Yeah,
too.
it's
So
really
like
bad.
it wasn't like it was just one page and I could just skip past it. It was just like literally I couldn't read any more of it because if anybody looked over my shoulder, they'd be like,
"You're
what
done."
the
Yeah,
fuck, dude. So like, yeah, I do recommend reading it in a place. Also, don't have it lying around so like a child could find it.
or again, if you're like a teenager or something.
Even the first.
Well, no, I was gonna say, or again, if you're a teenager or something, like your mom, like, oh, what's my kid reading? Like, wow.
Even the first.
Yeah, literally
like,
the first panels of the manga.
The first panel is a sexually explicit panel. Also, it doesn't really fit in with the character of Guts at all.
They kind of wrote that out. It was like in the original Hellsing manga. Even the Hellsing anime, like the movies, they just didn't touch this. But in the original Hellsing manga, like in Volume 1, Alucard was more of like a punk-ass kind of mercenary. Like when they're at the old house shooting a bunch of vampires or shooting a bunch of ghouls, like he gets orders from HQ to like, Alucard, like you gotta make sure you take out all these ghouls, and he's like, yeah, I'm doing it. And like that is so not what Alucard turned into. He became a sort of larger than life character after that, but he was more of like, you know, oh, it's relatable because he's cool and edgy like me, like in Volume 1, and they drop that so fast.
Well, in the first panel of Berserk, he's going at it with a girl, like they're both naked.
Yeah.
And like, no, he only loves one person. Like,
yeah, it starts off as Guts being a badass. He has sex with a demon, and then he like shoots her with his cannon arm. But like, that's not him. Even when he was when he was young and brash, that wasn't him.
It was very much an Evil Dead kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like he's having sex with a girl and she turns into a demon. That's a very Evil Dead kind of reference. And to be fair, like I pretty much think that Berserk takes a lot of cues from Evil Dead, at least in the beginning. And I think it was a direct inspiration, by the way. And I think he said that as much. I mean, even the main character is missing an arm and has a cannon there instead. So, I mean, there is evidence.
It was a
for
chainsaw
that.
in Evil Dead. Berserk obviously has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but thanks.
Come on.
Guts
didn't put a farewell to arms over his disembodied hand.
But yeah, I mean, if you start off with the series and read that first panel, like just ignore it.
Yeah,
because it doesn't.
It actually has no bearing on the plot anyway. It's an establishment of the character, but like, again, it's an establishment of a character that doesn't exist. Like, that's not what Guts is. You really could just skip that first page entirely and miss, like literally miss nothing.
It's more of an establishment of the world that he's in, that demons can exist, and it's a post-apocalyptic, dangerous place. But like, Guts later on is way too cautious to get in. First of all, even if he did want to get close to another person, he's way too cautious for that. Like, you know what I mean?
Not to mention, even the first arc in the manga, where he was killing that little girl's father who turned into a giant demon, and then the girl still got mad because he killed her father, and she didn't know that was the situation. And Guts was trying to act all macho, but secretly he has emotions inside. Like, that girl's like, I'm going to come back and kill you, and Guts is like, go for it. When you do, I'll be waiting. And then when she walks away, he's got, like, the single tear. But it's like, Guts wouldn't do either. Like, Guts wouldn't be like that. Like, he wouldn't be all, like, trying to look cool in front of people. Like, it very quickly comes to a point where he stops caring what people think. And he's like,
he's very single-minded.
There are demons, I'm going to kill them. Like, you go live your life if you want, just stay out of my way. But there's no machismo. Like, he's above having to prove how badass he is. He really doesn't need it.
He's so single-minded that everything is in service of going after Griffith.
That is his one job.
He doesn't care about anything else. He doesn't put airs on anything else. That's the one thing. You can come with him or you cannot.
He never mouths off to anybody. Like, who do you think you are? Like, I'll show you who I am. Like, it's not. You don't.
In fact, he barely talks anymore.
Yeah, he will speak when spoken to, and even then, there's like a chance.
he mostly is the tank that everybody else
like
tries to build up.
one of my favorite moments, because it was so guts, was when it wasn't Elf Island. It was a bunch of fairies or whatever, where the fairies were evil or something, or like it was either that or someone's friend got possessed or taken in by them or whatever. And Guts is talking to this one girl that he was with, who she's not a big plot character. She was just like an incidental member of the town. And Guts is like, well, I'm going to go into this place and I'm going to kill every single person there, so you might want to stay home for this part. You're not going to like what you're going to see. And the girl's like, but like, they got my friend. Like, one of those things is my friend. And Guts is like, well, then I'm going to have to kill your friend. And it's just like, wow. just straight up. Like,
yeah, that's more Guts than anything we've talked about.
There's no redeeming this person. This person's got to die. If you feel bad, then I'm sorry. But trust me, I'm making the right decision here. It's just like, whoa.
So, in a roundabout way, yes, we like everything Berserk, so just throw it at us.
Yeah, and the last part of the question, I actually answered this on YouTube, but it was actually asking if I would Let's Play the Musou game, but, like, there isn't really much to see. Like, what are you going to see? My character's special moves? Like, you're going to be watching the cutscenes and then skipping the actual gameplay, because it's hack and slash for hours and hours and hours. So, no.
For me, I plan on doing some streams. That's a game I would stream.
You could stream that for sure, yeah. But Let's Playing, like,
arcade-style games are great for streaming because you could just watch the person play that and try to get better at it.
Well, and the beauty of it while streaming, by the way, is that you don't have to really concentrate on the game you're playing. This isn't like you're participating in Evo where it's like, shut up, I need to think. Like, if you're just kind of chilling, mashing square for like 30 minutes, you could talk, like, literally, like, actually mashing square for 30 minutes.
That's the whole game.
That's every Musou game. But if you're chilling out, cutting down low level enemies, going through
shooting some b-ball outside of the school.
Shooting some b-ball. You can actually interact with the chat at that point. Like, hey, chat, what's going on? I'm just playing my Musou game.
Going to the Spalding factory.
That's a reference. But any Musou game you could play in a really, like, kind of laid back setting. Like, anything where you're grinding, like, the gameplay is almost an excuse for the talking. It's almost like a visual podcast at that point.
Yeah. So, like I said, I would totally do a stream of that. That's one of the games that I plan on streaming.
I gotta get into streaming at some point.
Yeah, and I actually want you guys to participate if you're available during my streams. Just, it would be cool to have people interacting with us.
No, I'll be doing my own stream.
Playing a game. Or, I would jump in on yours, that kind of thing.
No, I don't want it. No, you could do your own stream. We'll do it.
Don't cross the streams, Lotus.
Oh, Jesus
Don't cross
Christ,
the streams.
I walked right into that one.
But, so, that's not something that we would LP because it would just take way too long, and it's a lot of the same stuff over and over again. It's like playing a match 3 game, like, I don't know,
or even
Candy Crush.
Yeah,
like Let's Play Candy Crush.
Or like even like I was watching a Let's Play of Dead Rising, and I found that I was just kind of like, what is Dead Rising? You're killing the damn zombies. Maybe your weapons get cool, but that's the whole game. So I was skipping through the story scenes because the story scenes were cool as hell, and the gameplay was just kind of an excuse to get to them. And the game looked fun to play, but to watch, I was just skipping the scenes. I wanted to see what happened instead of hitting 3 zombies, then hitting 4 zombies. You know.
Yeah. I mean, that's also something like I would play an arcade game over stream as well. Like
the long.
You're not gonna do a Let's Play of like
Turtles in Time.
Well, that I would. We have done stuff like that. Like we
could do that if it's co-op and we're talking with each other. But like if you're doing it by yourself, you're killing foot soldier after foot soldier. By the time the game's about to end, I'm actually getting bored. With the arcade version, the Super Nintendo one kind of condenses it better.
What I more mean is that if it's a high score kind of game, I would rather,
like Pac-Man.
Like, for instance, you know that I really love Donkey Kong 3. I would stream me playing Donkey Kong 3 because people could also learn a lot from watching me play Donkey Kong 3 because there's a lot more strategy to that game than a lot of people realize.
Yeah, you're beating everyone's. You're beating everyone's high score at MagFest.
Yeah, I'm always
that was amazing.
One. I'm always number 1 by the time we leave, but
it's pretty funny.
And that makes me a better player, but I would do that over stream. I don't think it lends itself well. Plus, I kind of like having people like cheer me on while I'm playing that kind of thing. So that's the perfect kind of thing for me to stream.
I'm assuming you have that on Nintendo, right?
It's not the same.
I know it's not. I know it's not. So you'd either have to MAME it or Nintendo it.
I would have to play it on MAME. There's you could play the NES version, but it doesn't feel the same.
Okay.
It's slower and it's not the same. But I could play it via MAME. But even that.
Well, if you're gonna MAME it, then you should play Frenzy.
Well, here's the thing about that game and MAME, Donkey Kong 3 and MAME.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the feel of that game is its 4-way joystick.
Okay. Okay.
And so it's really hard for me to play it without its original joystick because of the way that I hold the joystick to play it better.
Mm-hmm.
So I would need to probably build myself a 4-way joystick just to play it.
Great. Just buy the damn arcade machine and call it a day.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna get at. So, like, until that point, I might not. I might do it, but I won't be as good at it.
Actually, you know, be kind of fun to play. I at least got a kick out of playing it. Was Sinistar.
Oh, Sinistar's great.
That was a great game.
That game is so much pressure.
Well,
like, oh my god, the entire game is pressure, but it's like the good kind.
You realize that you can't really play that one well outside of the arcade.
I know,
either.
but I don't care.
Well, it's like a 27-way joystick or some weird
whatever.
Crap. It has like this weird joystick inside it that has rubber bands all over it for different pressure points to hit like the different buttons on the inside. So it doesn't work like any other joystick.
I don't care. I just want to show off the game. It's cool. Beware,
yeah,
I live.
I'm sure an analog joystick, like a modern analog joystick, is serviceable.
Well, actually, speaking of which, I think Sinistar is on. I forgot what company. It might have been Midway,
Midway.
On the Xbox.
It was a Bally game, I think.
Well, it was. I think it's on some collection on the Xbox and maybe the GameCube or something.
Yeah, the Midway Arcade Classics.
Yeah, there we go. Because I'm pretty sure I have it like via one of those collections, so I could play it on my TV.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
So yeah. So having said that, that's all the questions, right, Lotus?
Yeah. Now that it's been
an hour and a half.
Full hour and a half.
But
so how was your day?
Keep them coming. Actually, I really like this as prompts for us to talk about.
Yeah, these were really entertaining questions.
Keep them coming. We may come up with a limit later on, just so we can limit the length.
Yeah, I mean, if we ever do limit the questions, though, we could always just, like we were saying before we recorded, we could always just bank the leftovers to the next one. It's not like we're just gonna be like, oh, too bad, we're just not gonna do your question or whatever.
Yeah. So don't feel slighted like we weren't paying attention to you or whatever. We do want your questions, and we will acknowledge them. You always acknowledge them when you get them, right, Lotus?
I mean, I don't answer them right
no,
there because I give them away. Yeah, I
say
say thanks for the question. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will answer them, and I absolutely love every question that we've had so far. So keep them up. We will keep answering them. I think if we limit it maybe to 3 next time and bank any that come after that.
It depends how long the answers are, I guess.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, let's move on to our regular segment, which is what we've been playing this week. I actually have some really good classic games that I've been playing this week. But I did want to talk about one new release or 2 new releases that I noticed that I thought were particularly relevant to us.
Oh, I bet I know what one of them is.
I haven't played them yet, but so there's a game on the 3DS eShop called Power Disc Slam.
Nice.
Apropos.
It is a Windjammers clone.
That is fantastic.
And I'm not gonna slam the people who made this game, but it doesn't look particularly good.
Oh. It jams with the rest.
It looks a little on the slow side, and it doesn't look like the graphics are very charming.
Okay.
So just to put it out there, maybe I'm wrong about it. I haven't played it, but I looked at video of it, and I wasn't too impressed.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm glad that people are trying it. So I'm glad that people are noticing that there's a need for it.
Yeah, please bring back more Windjammers and Power Disc action.
Yeah, so, and also a game that I've been waiting for a long time showed up on 3DS eShop recently. It was actually, it's called Gotta Protectors. Did anybody hear about this
No.
or
No,
see
I've
this?
never heard of it.
Okay, so this is actually a sequel to an XBLA Indies game
Jeez.
called Protect Me Night.
I think I've heard of that.
Okay, so it's one of the very few Xbox Live Arcade indie games that's still worth playing that hasn't been ported elsewhere. So essentially, what it is it's kind of like it's a defender game. Like you defend a certain point. What are those games called?
Tower defense.
Tower defense game. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's basically a tower defense game. There's a princess in the castle in the middle, and you have up to 4 people playing a 4-player game, protecting against hordes that are attacking it. And you can set up all kinds of defenses, but you could also it's done in 8-bit style, and it's music by Yuzo Koshiro,
Hey,
which is awesome.
Insta winner. He's the guy, if
Yeah.
you don't know, did music for Streets of Rage.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm not a huge fan of tower defense games, but I really have liked some games with tower defense elements that have action elements still. I'm not
Shadows
the
of the
kind of guy
Damned?
that... Well, yeah, I actually do like that style in that game, but in particular, what I'm thinking of is Bioshock 2.
Oh, with the protect the little sisters as they're dealing with the body.
Yeah, you can actually set up all kinds of traps around her to protect her from all of the splicers coming in. And I don't really hear people talking about that as a tower defense element, but it is.
Well, it's
absolutely
a little
is.
sister defense element. That's why. It's totally different.
But yeah, I actually really like that aspect of that game, and it made it a lot of fun. And I particularly think that Bioshock 2 doesn't get the
Recognition.
the praise that it deserves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty good game, even though I didn't feel like Bioshock needed a sequel, but I feel like 2, I haven't beaten it, but 2 is pretty good in and of itself.
2 solid.
The DLC is even better. But anyway, yeah. But this is the sequel, and I'm glad that I believe it has online play.
Okay.
For up to 4 people can play this. And defend against the hordes, and it was a lot of fun on XBLA, but it was only couch co-op, so you needed to have 4 people, in your house play it. So this one I think has online capabilities. So if it doesn't, that's okay too, because I think it might be one of those games where you could do download play. So
nice.
I'm happy that it came out finally, because I wasn't sure whether we were gonna get it. Especially considering it's not from like a big publisher or anything like that. But I am kind of, I am kind of weirded out that they renamed it, because how are people supposed to figure out what this is?
Well, yeah,
I knew
it was
what
like
it was
that.
immediately.
That
but-
reminds me is this is for a very different reason. But the games, the obscure games.
yeah,
Do you remember that one that made it to Steam that was like sort of a beat 'em up and not even close to what the original games were?
yeah.
Well, I think it got such a bad rap that they actually changed the title from obscure. So it's called something like Final Exam or something like that, where you're never gonna find it if you're actually looking for it unless you know what it's been changed to. I typed in obscure on Steam and came up with nothing, and I was like, I could have sworn it was on there.
Actually, the first 2 obscure games are on Steam now.
Well, yeah,
so-
but I mean that the third one.
yeah,
It's just like, where is it? It's just not called that anymore.
I think that was actually changed in development, but it still has trappings of being an obscure game,
Yeah.
something like that. So, I just had to mention those 2 games because I got a kick out of that. I'm definitely gonna get Gotta Protector's Power Disc Slam, probably not. But the games that I actually played, so I got a mail shipment in this week, and I finally got all the remaining pieces of what I'm going to use to do all my streaming.
Oh, good.
And
Nice.
do my recording. So I got in my 4 terabyte hard drive to save raw video on, because that's massive.
It's massive.
And I got my capture card. I got an Elgato HD 60S, and I I also got a couple things that I wanted to help facilitate my streaming and my recording. So I got the idea that I wanted to do the Sonic games, the classic ones, because I was a big fan of those when I was a kid. I was a Genesis kid. So I want to play Sonic 1. And the iOS version happens to be the best official version of Sonic,
so you got
Sonic
that
1.
Yeah, so you did mention this last week. So did you actually get that weird, like, phone controller?
So I got a Hori iOS controller.
That is ridiculous.
And it's a really good controller, so I tried it out, and it works perfectly with my iPod.
Nice.
And I also got the dongle that'll allow me to do video and audio out of my iPod. It's just kind of funny that I'm playing it on my iPod.
Yeah.
Not even my iPad, because my iPad is a third gen. So the third gen iPad actually isn't compatible with the controllers
that
they make for iOS now. It does like the old janky ones, like the iCade and stuff like that, but those, I don't think that game is compatible with the iCade. It's only compatible with the official iOS controllers. So I got the Hori pad, and it's great, and I decided, you know what, let me take it out for a test run, and I ended up playing a lot of Sonic 1.
That game's addictive, although it's quite hard.
Yeah, so my idea is that I want to do an LP of it. I don't want to do a stream of it, because I think I'm not good enough to get it perfect enough for a stream, because what I want to beat it with all the Chaos Emeralds. So
yeah, I've never been
particularly
able...
difficult in the first one.
Yeah, I've never been able to do it for real. The best I've been able to do was this is what I did when I was at your place that one time. Was I level selected to one of the bonus stages where you get the emeralds, and when I got it, we used like a reset exploit until we got all the emeralds, and then played the game through normally, because it is really hard to get to the bonus stages in Sonic, because you need to beat the stage with over 50 rings and jump into the ring at the end. So you only get one chance per stage, and it's at the very end, so you have to beat the stage with 50 rings on you, and as you get through the game, it gets harder and harder to do. Like, good freaking luck beating Scrap Brain Zone with 50 rings.
Well, that's the funny thing. Scrap Brain Zone actually won't allow you to get a giant ring at the end.
So there are even fewer opportunities than I thought.
Yeah, so like just to let you know, probably more people are familiar with Sonic 2's bonus stage.
Yeah.
But that one you can get at any
goalpost,
any of the lampposts.
Yeah.
And so it's actually possible in the first game, in the first level, in the second
stage.
game, in the first stage to actually get 3 of the Chaos Emeralds.
Yeah, if you know where to look.
Yeah.
Not to mention when you go in a bonus stage and back out, all the rings on the level resets. You could actually go back and collect rings that you already got. Like,
yeah, you can actually get them all pretty early in the game.
Yeah.
Probably in the first 3 levels.
Yeah, the whole stage resets except for the fact that you've checked off certain lampposts. So yeah, just get the 3 lampposts just in Act 1. Get 3 emeralds. Get like another 2 or 3 in Act 2. Like, it's ridiculous if you know exactly what you're doing. It's just like that in Sonic 3. You can get way more emeralds than you might think if you know where to look for the bonus stages.
Well, the bonus stages in 1 are particularly confusing and disorienting on purpose.
Yeah,
so,
they're constantly rotating stages.
Talk about using a guide. I actually looked up maps of how to get through the bonus stage in that, because they're kind of like pachinko in a lot of ways.
Yeah, the entire stage rotates, and you want to fall into the center, but that means you have to keep rotating with the stage, otherwise you'll hit the outer edges of the stage, which will insta-quit you.
And some of the blocks will actually change the direction or speed up or slow down.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah, and there's also like this really trippy background going on behind it. So,
and even the music's a little funky at that part.
So it's also really hard if you don't know where you're going in it, because some of the spaces may look like that's where you're supposed to go. And in fact, it's actually going to make you lose. So it's particularly hard. But I actually got to Scrap Brain Zone with 4 Chaos Emeralds just by farting around.
Yeah, and by the way, for the record, Sonic canon tends to have 7 Chaos Emeralds, but in the original Sonic the Hedgehog game, there are only 6. So 4 is quite impressive. I mean, honestly, in Sonic 1 is quite impressive.
So this is my first go, and with the iOS version. And by the way, I also want to go over why I want to do the iOS version. That's why I'm being particular about it. So this one was programmed by Christian Whitehead, who programmed the really great version of Sonic CD that we've been talking about.
Yeah, available on PS3, 360, and Steam.
He remade Sonic 1 and 2. However, Sega is dumb and only released them on iOS and Android. Those particular versions. And so...
Baffling, considering they released all the Sonic games, including the old ones, in 3D Blast on Steam. Like, why not these?
Well, no, they have Sonic 1 and 2 on Steam. There's just not this version of Sonic 1 and 2.
But that's what I mean. Like, might as well... That's what I'm saying. Like, they clearly have no problem releasing Sonic 1 and 2. Like, might as well...
I'm pretty sure that's why they haven't been released like that, because all of the systems already have a version of Sonic 1 and 2, and they don't want to create, like, buyer confusion.
Sure.
But at the same time, these are the best versions, and I'll tell you why. So Sonic 1, first of all, has real, genuine widescreen. Like, the aspect ratio isn't stretched out or anything.
That's cool.
The field of view is actually widescreen.
That's awesome.
So, right there, that automatically makes it better for a modern TV. And number two, it has saving ability. You could save your game.
Oh, that's interesting.
And go back to it.
Because Sonic 1 is a game you could beat in one sitting, but it's also, like, not easy to beat in one sitting.
And given that there are plenty versions of Sonic that are emulated where you could do a save state, but this one actually just keeps your progress. So it's not even a save state. It's just you got to this level, you can go back to it starting at that level. So it's not even a save state. So if you beat the game, you can play as Tails.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
And that's the first time ever for a non-hack. That's the only time that Sega has released a version of the game.
Tails didn't even exist until Sonic 2.
So, if you beat it with all of the Chaos Emeralds, you unlock Knuckles as well.
That's insane. That's really awesome.
And actually, the reason why you can't... You know how you could use Knuckles in Sonic 2 if you put in the cartridge for Sonic 2 into Sonic and Knuckles.
And his bonus stages were easier than Sonic's. They had a lower ring requirement, and the final boss was considerably harder to hit with Knuckles.
Yeah, because he can't jump as high.
Yeah, like I was dying at him all the time, and I'm like, I know I'm not this bad at this game.
But the thing is you would notice that a lot of people, I'm sure, when I was a kid, I would experiment and see if Sonic 1 worked, and instead it just unlocks Blue Sphere. So there's apparently a technical reason behind that. The original Sonic game actually doesn't have the palette to...
Actually, no. I didn't. If you put Sonic and Knuckles on the wrong game, it unlocks Blue Sphere. But I thought Sonic 1 was the exception. With Sonic 1, you got like a screen of Robotnik, and it's like not like nice try, it doesn't work, or something like that.
Okay, all right. So
that.
It just doesn't work. Yeah. So either way, you can't play.
Yeah.
With Knuckles in it, and there's actually a technical limitation behind that. The original game doesn't actually have the palette to have Knuckles look right.
That's interesting.
Oh, interesting.
It doesn't have those colors of red. Yeah. Whereas the games later could accommodate him. So this game actually adds Knuckles to it, which is neat.
Yeah, that's super cool.
And this version of the game has an optional spin dash in it.
Spin dash, being able to duck and then mash the jump button to dash attack, that was not normally available until Sonic 2. So to do that in Sonic 1, Sonic 1's a surprisingly slow game, even though it's freaking Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, they added it actually in Sonic Jam, the Saturn version of Sonic 1. But it's nice to see it here with all of these other features
on a system that people actually own.
So, and I cannot play it with the touchscreen. So I got this controller, and I'm going to be able to play it. It's going to look really great. I even tested it on my screen. It looks fine. Nice. The sound is a little off because Genesis is just hard to hard to emulate in that regard.
Yeah.
But it's still a great version of the game. Sonic 2 it also has those things. You can have Tails and Knuckles in the game, but it also does a couple other really cool things. Like it adds a cut stage, which is the Hidden Palace
Zone. I mean, Tails was always available in Sonic 2, but Knuckles was a special case.
So not only that, but it also has the same widescreen support. So
that's amazing.
I will be playing those games, and I'll probably play the ROM hack of 3 when I get to that. I'll probably play Sonic the Hedgehog 3 Complete, which has Sonic and Knuckles integrated into the game better than the official version. So I played that a lot, and I also played. This is kind of funny. During my lunch breaks at work, we've been studying really hard because I'm studying for a licensing exam. So I've actually been playing a game on my iPad. I've actually been playing the third Donpachi game.
That was a shooter, right?
It's a shmup made by Cave. So Cave is best known for the Donpachi series, and also Death Smiles, and Espagaluda, and Mushihime-sama. And Ketsui, so just to name a few. But they are best known for the Donpachi series, and this is the third Cave game. There's also another. There's Dodonpachi 2, which was not made by Cave. So this is the third one that they made in the series, and I got into playing the iPad version of that, which is quite good on its own. And I got into the scoring of that, and I decided to play even more of that on the main version. The main version's actually a lot harder. The real version of the game is much harder because you can move your ship around with your finger, and it's like 1-to-1. So in that game, you can there are two modes of shooting. There's like the rapid fire shooting, which is just shooting missiles, but you can hold down the button for a concentrated laser. When you're in laser mode in the real version of the game, it actually slows your character down so you can actually maneuver around bullets easier.
Which a lot of games like that do. Yeah,
well, the iOS version doesn't have any change in movement whatsoever because you're just using your finger to move the ship. So I found out that it was a lot harder to play the real version, and I was getting my butt kicked. But I do plan on doing some streams of those games, and other shmups in the future. So those are the major ones. I do have plans to buy Metroid Prime Federation Force, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
Well, I'm gonna be really brief, especially because we're getting really kind of out there in time, but I beat Dungeon Keeper. Hooray, good for me. That's about what I got.
Nice.
Otherwise I've been pretty much just editing my JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Eyes of Heaven Let's Play, and that'll be going up really soon, but that's my story. I beat Dungeon Keeper, the end. If you want to talk about games that we've bought, then I guess we can mention, and I'm sure you got on this as well, was they're coming out with Rez for the PS4.
I can't freaking wait.
Well, here's the crazy part. If you know Rez, you know what a psychedelic, like synesthesia, like experience that game is. Now, I don't have PlayStation VR. God knows when or if I'm going to get it. But it will apparently be VR compatible, and I do have to admit, a game like Rez or Child of Eden in VR would be freaking insane.
I'm gonna buy it just for that.
Like, because that's my whole thing. Because a lot of VR now, it's in its very early stages. So a lot of games aren't really games; they're like tech demos that are disguised as games. You know, you can move objects around. Like, whoa, cool, I guess. But like, Rez in VR, damn, like that'll be something.
I can't wait because I'll buy a PlayStation VR immediately just so I could play that game because I have synesthesia. So this game and I love the Panzer Dragoon games, and I love the music in this game.
The music in Rez is freaking great.
It's one of my favorite experiences playing that game because of my particular condition. And, I have just a long love affair with that game. I've played it since the PS2. I know some people out there have played it since the Dreamcast. But I really love the version for 360. That's particularly great. But this will be even better. They just keep making this game better and better.
Yeah, the thing is, with the Dreamcast version, that's the vanilla version of Res. Did the PS2 have anything different?
Just the trans vibrator.
I had the trans vibrator, which was Japan only. That was a device which you could put somewhere on yourself and it'll vibrate to the music, so it gets you more into the experience. The 360 version was even better because
it was in HD.
Well, yeah, but on top of that, it could support 4 controllers, and all of them would vibrate. So you can get your
the one
friends,
that you're holding, and then
so you can have 3 of your friends get in on the action with the vibration, or you could just put the controls all over yourself and get super vibratey. So like and VR gets to be in freaking VR. So there we go.
Mizuguchi actually has a preferred placement for all of the different controllers.
What is it, like 2 legs in the chest or something?
He puts one behind his shoulders, like right on his neck.
Now we're talking.
And then two on his lap. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So regarding PSVR, Res would be a reason to get it for me, and also so would when it finally comes out the remake of White Day. I think it's out on mobile now, but if that goes out on PlayStation VR, I don't know if that's out yet or if it's coming out, but that'll be a freaking trip because White Day is one of the scariest games I've ever played. It was Korea only for like 15 years or something, and like all of a sudden American release. What? So like, I'm super excited about that.
Oh, one more thing before you go any further.
That's all I had.
Oh, okay. I don't mean to cut you off here, Pyro, but I forgot other thing I played. I beat AM2R.
Oh, good for you.
Oh, nice.
So I beat the Metroid 2 remake, and it was awesome at the end of the game. It was one of the best Metroid games I've ever played. It's really great. It's up there. The game, towards the middle, I was feeling like the game didn't have very much challenge. And that was like one of my major criticisms with the game. But the end of the game, it's like the last phase of Metroid is ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah, it's really, really, really difficult. The Queen Metroid isn't too bad. I only died twice fighting her. The Omega Metroids, it took me a while to try to beat them, and there are 3 or 4 of them, and they're all pretty difficult. But the last battle is more epic than really difficult, which is really I think the series pretty much has that going for it. Like even in Super Metroid, the penultimate fight is a lot harder than the last one. So
yeah, Mother Brain can be tough, but like, come on now, Ridley.
Yeah, so I ended up getting 89% of the items, so I'm probably going to go back and do that because I got the lame ending where I'm fully suited.
Yeah.
But the game is also made with speedrunners in mind, if you want to play it like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, Super Metroid was, I think, one of the, maybe even the first game to really kind of pioneer speedrunning.
Well, Metroid 1. I mean, Metroid 1 had different phases of her suits depending on how quickly you beat the game.
I mean, it did, but I think... I guess it did, but I thought Super Metroid was really where it actually started to happen.
Well, there was also sequence breaking was really big with Super Metroid, and I think this game also takes into account for that.
Okay.
So, because there are particular rooms that you would never get to or need to get to in this game unless you were speedrunning.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh, wow.
I like that.
Yeah. There's a particular room that there's no other function other than to make it you're traveling faster.
That's funny. It is cool how some games are made with, like, some games are actually made with speedrunning in mind. Like, I heard the developers during, like, I think AGDQ say that they actually designed Axiom Verge partially with speedrunning in mind, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, Axiom Verge is actually one of my the next Metroidvania that I'm probably going to play. And I can't wait to play it. I haven't played it yet, but I particularly really loved Ori and the Blind Forest. It was a really challenging one that I really loved. This was the first Metroidvania since Ori that really challenged me, and I really loved the way it was designed. So
sure.
Definitely, guys. Definitely play it. I can solidly say that you would want to play this version more so than Metroid 2.
Okay.
Like if you wanted to run through them all, just play this version if you want to play them in order, because it is a much better experience than playing Metroid 2, and mostly in particular because of how cramped the screen is in Metroid 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the limitations of the system that was on make it difficult to play. You're just so big in compared to the rest of the screen, and you don't have enough time to react to the enemies. So definitely go for it.
Yeah. So Pyro, what have you been playing?
I really haven't had much chance to play anything new this week. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Oh, I've been replaying Persona 4 Dancing All Night.
Nice.
And I've gotten all the achievements. I platinumed that game, but there's also these in-game things to do. They're called medals, and they range from bronze, silver, gold, and black is like the highest one.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And I have almost all of them except for the really annoying one where you have to collect like 10 million money, and it's like I only have like 3 million, and I don't feel like grinding for that. That's the only one left I have to do too.
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the different endings that you can get in the Wario World games, or Wario Land games, and the Luigi's Mansion games.
Yeah, Luigi's Mansion was really hard to get the S rank.
Well, like, so Wario Land, the original, I thought for sure to get the best ending you would just need to collect all the treasures, because they're difficult to get and they're fun to find.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go back and get them. So I got really good at that game, and I really love that part of the game. So I got all the treasures, and it turns out that I got the second best ending. And I was like, what? Well, how do I get the freaking, like, one where I have, like, a mansion on the moon? And it turns out that you have to collect, like, just bullshit amounts of coins.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna farm coins. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna farm coins to get a good ending.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just stupid. So, like, my ending was good enough for me. It's a gigantic mansion. It's a happy one. So
yeah.
I just think that one on the moon's just kind of stupid.
Actually,
and they figured
speaking
that
of which, by the way,
nobody could get that. It's kind of like that in Luigi's Mansion.
Well,
too.
I was speaking of Luigi's Mansion. Yeah, it's pretty hard to get the S rank because you have to basically get like every single bit of money in the game, which is pretty damn hard. But you know what's actually also surprisingly difficult to get in Luigi's Mansion is the absolute worst mansion, because you have to like
really?
It's kind of hard to get that little money. Like, it comes to the point where you have to actively avoid stuff, and it's pretty great because your house at the end is like a doghouse. It's like you can't afford anything. Like, this is the best you could come up with. Yeah.
So I feel your pain there, Pyro.
But yeah, that's really all I've been playing this week.
Oh, that's good enough for me. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
that's
it's fun
that's
time.
A great game. I plan on playing that, but I have Persona 4 to get through and Persona 3 before I even get to that game, because I'm sure there's spoilers.
Kind of.
Yeah. So those are the major games that I want to get through before I get to that one.
Yeah. At this point, though, I think as you would say, we've dealt a lot of damage here.
Yeah, I know that our last one was a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And some people appreciated the smaller size, but we had those questions to go through, so we will try to keep it a little bit more concise next time, but keep up with the questions. We want them, we'll just bank them.
Yeah, for sure. This has been a good set of conversations, though.
Absolutely, and we'll be here to talk about more inanity.
I like that word.
All right, guys. We'll catch you next week.
Until next time, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.